welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about two different things. The first thing is how all art styles are valid, even if you don't personally like them. And the second is how I'm learning to stop censoring myself to try and fit into a box. As usual, I will be stopping and talking about the art piece in between. So usually I do quite well with being proud of my art, but recently I think I've been feeling a tiny bit self-conscious of it and being nervous about what people think of it and therefore think of me. I get into super long periods where I make art without censoring anything, censoring the content, the medium, the size, the meaning, anything at all. And then literally one small thing can happen and I'm back to questioning whether I should conform to a normal style or be more realistic. I talked about this in the past, about how they pushed realism in my school and college, and that made me not feel like my art was valid in those environments. It also caused me to create my true art at home and hide it away until I found the confidence to start posting it. Well, the thing that recently set me off has something to do with that. I posted my art on Reddit and someone had commented some friendly criticism that they liked the layout but I needed to work on my anatomy and my art, and that the people in it didn't look realistic. Now, the first part was valid advice and is something I'm always working on anyways, but the second part kind of threw me off because my style is not realism. Now, someone else replied to that comment and said that they liked my style and they didn't think I was going for a realism look, which was correct, but it kind of got me thinking that my art isn't valid if it's not realistic. And even though I know that's not true and the person wasn't being rude or mean, all those comments that I got from teachers and tutors came flooding back and I almost wanted to delete the post. Now, I know being online you have to have tough skin, and it's not like it made me feel that bad, it just made me doubt myself a little, which if you watch my videos you know I'm constantly fighting that self-doubt. It's like I have this 50-50 of self-confidence and belief and then self-doubt and limitation. I know that all art styles being valid art is something that is obvious to some and even most people, but I think it's something that I also am constantly reminding myself. When I'm looking at other people's art and I find myself not liking the style, in my head it's almost labelled as bad art when that is just not the truth. There are some styles I don't like and they are very well done. It's almost like I never could see what I was doing until a mirror was held up to me. It also made me think, if I can realise this and actively unlearn this, why could the teachers and tutors never do this? I think it's important to learn how to give advice that is relevant to someone's style without almost like putting them down or putting their work down. I think it's really easy to do, even if you just find artists in a similar style and point them in that direction. There's so many ways you can do it, and I just don't understand why teachers don't take the time to really encourage different types of art. The way that you can challenge those thoughts is just by actively realizing your own biases and where they come from, and learning where they are helpful and where they are not. This definitely is something that is not art specific. It is just something you will learn in everyday life. Well, not everyone, because we live in a society where we censor ourselves. For me personally, this is a very recent thing I have realized. I realized that all the criticism I have received made me want to conform and fit into a box. It wasn't until I started speaking to people with differing opinions and having my own thoughts challenged and just talking to loads of different types of people and realizing that even though we don't agree, we can coexist well. And it's actually been a really helpful tool within life and my relationships and art. And even though this is about how I took something a stranger said very personally, it's also helped me to not take things as bad as I used to. I used to literally think that every critique was a personal attack. Like when I was really young, any criticism that was to help me get better, I used to just feel like a lump in my throat anytime I heard it, or anytime I was sort of like pulled to the side. It just made me feel like this overwhelming anxiety, like I was not doing good enough, when in reality you don't start off perfect. It's kind of like built, and you learn what works and you learn what doesn't. I wish this was something that was implemented in educational institutions, but it's just not a reality. It wasn't a reality for me when I was in school, and hearing stories now, it's not going on or changing. I am very lucky that I had parents who allowed me to explore this outside of school. If it wasn't for them, I am pretty sure that I would not be doing art now, and I wouldn't be as passionate about it. Even though they might have not always liked the style or the subject matter of my art, they made sure that they showed an interest in a way that I would appreciate by showing me artists who created similar art, or just showing me reference images, just a lot of different things, taking me to places that they thought I would appreciate. And it just meant a lot to me, because I know that they're not like into art as much as I am. But especially with my mum, she is like the driving force behind my self-belief. She really showed me what it's like to have someone believe in you no matter what. And when I am not feeling the best about how life is going, she is always there to not just give me positive words, but give me realistic words and make me realize that I am on the right path and I'm working towards it. It doesn't just happen with no work. Also, now I'm an adult, both of my parents helped me challenge my biases in a way that I just did not expect when I was a child. I think because I was raised by them and raised with the same beliefs, I assumed that they would always stay the same. But now I'm an adult, I see that they both have very different beliefs and opinions, and I am like a blend of the both of them. So I'm always having debates with my mom and my dad about different things. Challenging your own biases is also a perfect way to make friends with people that maybe you wouldn't have before, because you thought that you disagreed on a tiny thing, you couldn't possibly build a friendship. I know for me there are certain things that are completely off limits where I probably know that we won't get along, such as like racism, discrimination, yeah, stuff like that. I'm like, I don't think that we're gonna get along, but it doesn't mean that we can't coexist with people who have mild differing opinions. This also goes into the topic of self-censorship, because I used to find myself censoring my words and my thoughts and my opinions because I was very scared that I would lose friends or I would get hate, even though I have pretty, I don't know, not normal views. I don't have like extreme views or opinions. But yeah, I would try and sort of mold into whoever I was around and what they believed. It's a very dangerous game, because then you end up becoming someone you aren't really, and you don't have an ounce of authenticity, and you're really just killing yourself inside. And this is how I would censor my art. There would be certain topics or certain things that I was feeling or things that happened in my life, and I felt like I couldn't put them in my art because either the person who's in the situation would see it, or I wouldn't draw naked women because I thought my family would think it was some sort of, I don't know, just they would take it the wrong way. But I slowly realized that I was not enjoying my art because it felt very limited in what I could draw. And because I have such a vivid imagination, it was literally painful for me to try and keep it in. There wasn't one big way I got over this. I think it was just slowly testing the waters and having people around me who would encourage me, and realizing that what I create is unique to me, and I would be doing a disservice if I wasn't putting the time in and wasn't allowing myself that freedom and break from reality to create art. Recently, I have been creating a lot of fairy tale inspired art and doing a lot more backgrounds and just adding more features, since I'm used to just doing portraits of people in a sort of fantasy way. So for this piece, I wanted to do a fairy underwater, sort of like she's just poked her head up. So that's why she has all the flowers and the leaves on the top of her head, and she is submerged in the pond halfway. So yeah, I just wanted to make it look like something had alerted her or she'd been called, so she'd had to pop her head up, but she hadn't had time to sort of take everything out of her hair. Other than that, this is a very, I wanted to say bland then, but I don't mean bland. This is a very, like, it doesn't have like a deep meaning as I always try to add into my art. It is just solely fantasy and fairy tale inspired. Because I don't create realism, I'm always trying to find a way to add a bit more texture to my work and make it look less flat. So for the water, I went in lightly with a blue first, just so I could see how it went and darken it up later. For the fairy herself, I really struggled with the skin tone. Not with the yellow, but I struggled picking the yellow because I knew I wanted to do an abnormal colour. But usually with the pictures I've seen of fairies, it's been like a blue or a purple, and I wanted it to be more warm since the water was going to be a cold colour anyway. And at first I really struggled because I added the red cheeks and the red lips and I thought she kind of looked a little bit like a clown, so I just added the pinks to the flowers to try and balance it out, because I feel like pink is in the middle of like orange, yellow and red. Recently, I have really been loving the visuals of lily pads, so I added them into this piece and they remind me of the wind in the willows. And I remember when I was younger, my grandparents took me and my brother to this place where they had loads of them. It was beautiful because I really like that book, so anytime I see them, I'm just reminded of that. Back to the subject of self-censoring. Self-censoring due to fear of disapproval has never helped anyone in their craft, let alone me and my own art. And the reason I talked so much about school and college is because I believe that that is where I was most likely censored, since I never created the art that I created at home in school or college. I tried to include elements where I could, but at the end of the day, I just felt way too self-conscious to create what I really wanted to, and to put the meanings behind the art that I wanted to put behind it, because I felt very vulnerable and I didn't feel safe to be vulnerable in those environments, just because of the censorship that was placed on us. In college, there was more free reign, but there was also a lot more like, if you don't do this, I'm not going to give you a grade, like if you don't change the meaning or the subject matter. And to me that felt very wrong, like just because you don't like something, as long as I've followed the criteria and the task, there shouldn't be an issue. But in education, that isn't just art specific, there's censorship as a whole of students in any subject. I think that now it is just accepted as a part of school that you will want to fit in, and that you will be put in a box and you will be criticized if you don't have the same opinions or beliefs. So that is why it is so important for parents to be implementing that outside of school, and even maybe putting their children into clubs. It's extremely important in today's day and age, just because self-censorship is encouraged and free thinking is not so encouraged. And this is not me completely bashing school and other education systems. They definitely have their place in today's day and age, but I do not think that they are built to accommodate everyone. Back to this drawing/painting. At this point, I was kind of happy with how it was turning out, but I was getting a little bit sick of just looking at watercolor. Since I use mixed medias, I like the look of different textures, and the way that watercolor dries is, well, very dry. So I went back in over the flowers with a pro marker, but it just didn't look the same. So that is the only thing that I was struggling with, was adding different textures. But the way that the painting was, the watercolor worked really well, so I can't really criticize too much. One thing that I think I'm getting the hang of is color coordination. I used to really struggle pairing warm and cold colors together, but I sort of start with two main colors, so one for the person and one for the background, and then for all the other little bits in between, I will sort of find middle colors. So for the lily pads, I used a more yellowish green. My end note today is that there are two separate issues. If you don't like someone's style and feel like you can give them constructive criticism, do it without telling them another art style would look better. Give them advice relevant to them and their work, not what you would personally prefer. And the second issue is, don't censor yourself to fit into a box and get certain praise, or trying to go the easier route because it's not authentic or worth it. Having your work be appreciated for what it is 10 times better than making something that isn't a true reflection of you and then getting praised for it. Take a lot of trials and errors, but I think it is one step to personal freedom and creative freedom as a whole. It will also massively improve your relationships and your communication skills with people outside of those relationships, and just help you coexist more peacefully and civilly with others.